So, Trudie, you're a dog rescue charity. You've had an amazing journey, a 20-year-long journey, extending care and compassion to some of the most vulnerable and most in need dogs in the UK. Could you just start by giving us an overview of what you do?
Yeah. Um, well, I started the charity in dedication to my mum. She'd always brought me up on a compassionate ethos. And I wanted to run a charity which completely reflected her ethos, and that was unconditional rescue of the most needy. So I wanted to do that. It actually could probably have been any species, but I was sort of drawn towards dogs. The whole idea of our charity is that we take the dogs that are not wanted. They might be psychologically damaged. They might need veterinary treatment. They might be in the pound and just literally 7 days. Their 7 days is up and there's no rescue. So we wanted to be the one that came in and helped them. So the whole idea was that all the funds we raised, 100% of everything would be spent directly on rescuing these dogs, because we've always believed it's their funds. We're a hub through which the funds can pass to turn it into what they need. So 100% of the funds are spent on the animals so that we can do more on less money. We're all unpaid volunteers. We've got no admin costs. We don't hold any reserves. We're open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day for a dog in need. And just operate from the point of view of always being there for them. It started off very small. I began to take needy dogs into my home, to actually give them the life that I felt. And that began to snowball in that I got more and more requests from breed rescues and things, areas like that.
I want to sort of go into, you know, why there are so many dogs being put to sleep, and also this really shocking 7 day brief period of time that they're given to live.
It's terrible. The last time that I heard a figure, and you rarely hear figures, it was one an hour. But I imagine that is quite a doctored figure.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go abroad, you see, as you say, you see them all. It's a very closely guarded secret here,
Yeah.
and it's something that our charity has been trying to highlight.
Yeah.
That there is a pound near everybody,
Gosh.
and now pounds, like everywhere else, you have really good pounds that really care about their dogs, and they will do everything to try and find them. And you have terrible pounds, and within them, they're a commodity. Um, um, they're paid, a pound is paid for its contract and per dog, and they're paid every day for the 7 days. On the eighth day, they can take the dogs into their care and become their dog and their responsibility, or they can allow them to be put to sleep, which is paid for by the council. The only thing that's really helped that, and we did campaign for this very much, because I wrote a poem actually called Nobody's Dog, and they used it for the campaign. They gave it out to the politician, but microchipping, because the caring owner will usually microchip their dog now, and now it's compulsory to microchip your dog. Hounds almost always will check the chip. Of course, the chip can migrate. How much they'll look for that chip, if it's migrated down the chest or down the back or wherever it can go. But they will then contact you.
How many dogs have you saved, and how many have you supported over the last 20 years?
I reckon it's in excess of 25,000 dogs that we have actually got out of a life-threatening situation, such as the pound. We work with all sorts of situations. We get contacted by social services. We've taken them out of police kennels when they don't want to destroy them, but they can't keep them. I reckon it's over 25,000. Of course, we haven't always all taken all those. A lot of them we've taken when we were doing the huge pound that we were doing for 5 years. We take them we transport them to their rescue. So therefore, we were doing them in their van loads and travelling the country, dropping them off at their rescues, because that's another thing. Rescues can't always pick up. So a dog may have a space in, a pound in one part of England may have a space in another part, but they're not going to think. Whereas if you say, okay, I'll bring you the dog to you, then you've actually facilitated that dog's safety, if you see what I mean.
You became a bit of a link, I guess.
Yes, a link.
Yes.
Coordinate, get to know. Yeah, and we only went in on destruct rescues, so all of those dogs will have hopefully been rehomed, but they won't. We only work with non-destruct.
Can you describe a few of your most memorable moments from the past 20 years?
One memorable moment was when we were chosen by Panorama to be on their programme Britain's Unwanted Strays. That was a memorable moment because Battersea and RSPCA and the Dogs Trust were on, and we were the only little rescue. And what they did was they came, Tom Heap and his camera crew came on one of our pound runs. So they actually sat in the van and the cameraman went. And the memorable moment was afterwards. We went round pounds. We were actually only meant to pick up 6 dogs. But when we got to one of the pounds, they brought another 2 out and said, these are going to die. Could you put them on the van? So anyway, we got 8 that day. And when we got back to the kennels, one of the cameramen punched the air and he went, "We saved 8 lives today." And it was really nice because when you're doing it every day, he was so exhilarated by it that was really nice. I suppose another one would be we got the I4 award, Charity Champion Award, and we went up to the House of Lords to get it, it was first of all it was very strange because our life was very rough and ready at thing to go into the House of Lords and to the aura of the House of Lords was amazing. But Bill Oddie gave us our award, and I like Bill Oddie very much. And I didn't realise that I'm always really keen to say this is not my award, because it isn't my award. It is everybody that's helped that dog award. Yeah. It's the fundraisers, the people who bring food in. That award, it's the Dog Rescue. So I really didn't want to take this award under my name. I really was keen. So I went up and I was first up. So there was no precedent for me at all. I went up and they went to just give me it. And I wanted to say something. And actually, I don't think I was probably allowed to. But Bill Oddie was like, what do you want? I don't know if you can do this. Anyway, he allowed me to go up on the podium with me. And he said to all the people, "Excuse us." And then he shed a tear while I read it out, which was nice. And I felt he really, when he read about us, I felt he really understood us. I felt he knew where we were coming from. And that's really important to me, that the ethos is understood. I would say that over the 20 years, I've seen complete black darkness and I've seen brilliant light. I've seen 2 things that seem to be constantly fighting each other. And I've been totally shocked by what I've seen people are capable of. Yeah. But then on the other hand, I've seen the people who support us, I believe they're an army of animal angels. Yes. Because I know they haven't got a lot themselves. We don't have supporters who are backing us. We don't. Big supporters like I see other rescues. We don't have them. We have lots of people who give us their last £2, wait till they're paid at the end of the week to give us some money. And with thousands of those, you can do it. Sometimes I just wish it was easier, because to try and build the money every month to run the rescue, and we've never got anything left, is a very hard job, and it really is. And it would be nicer if it was easier, but we couldn't do it without those people. They're the ones we couldn't do. As I try to explain, and why I wanted to say something at the House of Lords, was because we can only reach out to those dogs because they give us the lifeblood that we need to be able to do that. They give us the means. We might be the hands that actually get the dog, but they make those hands work. So they've saved the dog just as much as we have. And so there's the light. And even since the chaos that the society is in now, there's still this innate goodness that's still there.
Yeah.
And they really motivate me. They can pull me from the depths I go into lots of times, because it's too hard. They really care that dog lives. They're not going to see that dog. Then they just care it lives. They care about its life, and that is amazing.
Supported by an army of animal angels, which has kept you going. But what are some of the darker moments that you've experienced, or the hardest times?
Okay. After we'd started doing the pounds, we were plunged into what I can only just say was hell. I got a phone call one day. I mean, we were doing lots of pounds, but I got a phone call saying that the rescuer for this very large pound, I mean, really, when we were working there, they had 120 dogs on site on a 7-day basis. Wow. Meaning that every one of those, every 7 days is changed round. So I got a phone call to say that the rescue that was working with that pound had disappeared. They'd just gone, probably because they couldn't cope, probably, and I was asked to temporarily help. And what met us was something I had never seen the horror of before. There was no veterinary care. The animals were being, to be honest, the other rescuer, what I saw was that there were just all these dogs with little angels over their heads on the internet that had been killed. So it was just, this one's gone, this one's gone, this one's gone. So I walked into hellhole. The freezers were full of dead dogs. They were strewn all over the floor. If a dog got ill, it laid in its pen and died. They had a very virulent form of gastroenteritis within the pound. It wasn't parvo, but the dogs were very sick with it. They didn't vaccinate. They didn't disinfect. There were rats. They weren't fed. There were far too many contracts, so they couldn't cope. So they had to get rid of the dogs within 7 days. And suddenly we were faced with that. They were rearing farm animals for slaughter in the grounds. So death was everywhere. Death was just like death and illness. But anyway, over the time, I couldn't leave them. Not once I'd seen them. I wanted to save the most needy first, and then all of them afterwards. But we weren't just interested in anything. So we did it slowly in steps. By the end of the 5 years, which was probably the longest 5 years of my life, we had made them non-destruct. But it was a very slow process of fighting. There were no pound lists, so we need every dog documented. We need to know when they come in. We need to know when they go out. When they're due to be put to sleep. We need to know that. So we instigated pound lists. I noticed really quickly that there were no bull breeds on the pound list, and I asked them why aren't I getting the bull breeds, and they said, well, they're dead dog walking. on the best way, the only way that they leave the pound is in a wheelbarrow, right? So I said, well, not while we are doing it. So I want every bull breed on this list. I want every dog on the list. So slowly, we over the time we brought in vaccinations, we brought in disinfectant, we brought in food. It was freezing in the winter there and boiling hot in the summer. And we did the best we could, putting carpets on the roofs to try and cool the kennels down when it was so hot. And we started off with one van, and by the end of the 5 years, we had 5 vans. And what we would do is, I don't think there was ever a day, there was no day when you weren't working on a pound list, because they were just coming in. As you finished one, there were like 15 dogs. As you finished one, the next one they'd become available. The volunteers, the pound people, the people who worked in the pound began to become volunteers, and they began to count the dogs in. There was one that slept there. He used to count the dogs in at night for me. We had 12 last night, Trudie, so that's how, we've got it. Sometimes you think, oh no, 12, I can't cope with 12. But they also didn't like, well, not all of them. When I first went there was one who was extremely needle happy, and to absolute amazement, even of the actual owner, she decided to steam clean a block. So she killed 25 dogs to do it. That she just killed them because they had the euthanaate in the fridge. We were allowed, once some of the pound workers had become volunteers, them to ring me and say there's a dog laying ill. We were allowed to pick that dog up and take it. We got a thing with the local vet. And once we got that dog out and into the local vet, they became ours. So any dog that was ill, I was informed they'd go and get them, and so we started veterinary treatment for the dogs, food. It was slightly impossible with warmth, but we did the best we could. There were kennels which were literally icy, awful. Again, I wrote a poem about that one as well. I think I found if I wrote a poem, it felt a bit better. I don't know. Yeah, so over the time working in hell, if I put a foot wrong with the owner, for example, there was a little Yorkie and I could tell he had a blockage, and they wanted to home him, and I actually took him here. But what we did, we had a van, and it was parked in the car park of the pound, and we called that the safe house. So therefore, if they wouldn't wait, they could put the dog in the van and we would send a driver up. So therefore, they had somewhere where, in effect, as far as they're concerned, the dog has gone, been put to sleep, but it would have been put to sleep. And so we did all those sort of things for 5 years. And by the end of the time, they were totally non-destruct. They actually closed down, or else I probably would still be, but they closed down for financial difficulties. But the person who owned the land, where the second, they were on 2 sites, he actually said that he wasn't going to do anything with the land because it needed to recover. It needed to recover from the awful things that had happened there. So yes, that was a terrible time. That was.
But you managed to completely turn around, this one of the worst places, the worst pounds in the country, and the staff workers actually became volunteers. So
yes, it is.
You changed it, completely changed it.
Their ethos changed.
Their
because
ethos changed,
their ethos changed. Because if you see a dog and you know that's going to die, that dog is going to die within 7 days, and you're quite tough.
Yeah.
That dog doesn't really need very much. It doesn't need much care because it's going to die anyway. They're dogs walking to them. Once they know they're going to live, then, and people are actually taking them and giving them veterinary treatment, and they're giving them, they're giving them injections. Yeah, suddenly that dog becomes
worthwhile.
Oh, right, okay, we'll give it a bit more food today.
Yeah.
So yes, their ethos changed.
Amidst sort of these really tough and emotionally, draining and difficult experiences, what has given you the drive to keep going?
I think every time I am faced with a dog that's due to die, I cannot help but become that dog and put myself in that dog's position. So I actually feel what they feel. And I think to myself, I've got to be brave. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know it. I mean, we've seen such cruelty, dogs put on barbecues, dogs with cigarette burns, dogs that have been abused for ages. We've got a dog at the moment in the kennels who was hung up on a fence. His throat was cut. He was stabbed all over. His eye came out, and he's actually emotionally he couldn't settle after that to him. So he's in long-term training with us. But as much as I don't want to face that, like everybody, I'm just like everybody else. I want to go, no, I don't want to see. He can't afford for me not to be able to see, because he's actually in that position, much worse position than me, having to listen to him or see him. And that is what makes me fight for him.
So what have been your proudest achievements? What is it that really makes you feel just incredibly proud about what, not just you, but the whole army of people that have been, behind the
I, I I think the biggest thing that we've done, or I hope we've done, is the changing of ethos. That life is precious. It's very easy to get in. You can't save them all, and probably you can't. But if you can get an ethos that you try, you've got to try. You've got to make their life worth trying as hard as you can. And if you fail, okay, you fail and it's terrible, and you carry that with you forever, because you failed. And that's another terribly painful thing that you have to live with. In actual physical achievement, I think Cotton Kennels is another one, because I've found the heart of our charity there. What happened with doing that pound, I still found that as hard as I tried, I couldn't place all the dogs without taking some myself, because they're the very old one, or nobody wanted. So I didn't have kennels at that time. I started taking emergency boarding kennels, which is actually what's put us in the financial situation that we are at the moment, because you take an emergency, but you've then got to fund it. But in going through emergency boarding kennels, I came to Cotton. They have my ethos. The ethos of the charity is there. They work all hours. They help with the funds. They love the dogs. And suddenly I have an area which is totally Doris Banham. I mean, we have 100 dogs there. I think dog rescue has got better until the pandemic. And I think the pandemic brought a situation. I said to you that was my worst time when I was doing that large pound. Actually, this is much more, because during that time, it was achievable if you worked every hour and you gave your life to it, and you just didn't try and do anything else. What's happened since the pandemic? It's been the most awful. I've seen other rescues. I mean, I talk to them regularly. We're all broken. We're all, and the pandemic, and where we are at the moment with society in chaos, and a national animal welfare crisis going on. We're just coping with, and we can't save them all. And that is the most painful thing. And I'm frightened that those rescues that are have my ethos, and because there are other lovely rescues that have the same ethos, they're going to be taken out by this, because they will try as hard as they can until they drop.
Yeah.
And what will be left is a more ruthless rescue world. That frightens me. That frightens me a lot. If they don't get support, the unconditional ethos of trying to save all life needs to be supported before the ruthless ethos of cherry picking can take over, because it's an easier ethos to have. And I'm fearful for the future of rescue unless I've seen so many good people that I thought would never go broken. We don't want a rescue world that just does it all cleanly and simply, in that the homeable ones go through, they die. We don't want a rescue world. That's not a rescue world. We don't want that one. And I think it could slowly come about by them being destroyed, the other rescues being just collapsing one after the other.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that's going on at the moment.
What are some of your biggest takeaways on the relationship between humans and dogs?
I never cease to be amazed by dogs. It's strange because I see the extremes of both, right? So particularly since the pandemic, I've had a lot of people ring me, and a lot of them say, I've rung 100 rescue and you're the first person who's listened. Now, these are people where their life is in chaos. They're being evicted. They're in domestic abuse situations. They love their dogs so much. They don't know what to do. They're almost suicidal because they don't want to, they're losing their house. They're going into accommodation, no animals. They're going to lose their pet. They will do anything. And I try and help them. And then I also see what man is capable of doing to them. And that is so horrendous that it's quite difficult. Again, light and dark.
Yeah.
But through it all, the dog is the most forgiving, trusting. After everything that's done to them, they lick you. They wag their tails. They're stoic. They've put up with. I mean, we've taken in dogs that have been almost frozen, kept outside, starved, and yet they still trust us. I think we've got an awful lot to learn from them, to be honest. I think they're totally amazing.
How many dogs have you helped to find a forever home for?
Right. So all of the 25,000 plus that we've been their first step. In that, we've found them in the pounds or wherever they were going to die. We've coordinated a rescue space. We've transported them to the rescue. And we've always worked with non-destruct rescues. So all of those will be long-term, hopefully all homed, but, they would be kept. I would say probably in excess of 7,000 to 8,000 that we've homed out of our own kennels to forever homes. But the ones that we've taken into our own kennels have always been the ones that nobody wanted. We're called their last chance to live, right? So when they ring me, they're often on the vet's table. They're imminent. I had one today. I had 30 minutes. They were on the way to the vets. So when they ring me, if I say yes, they live. And if I say no, they die. And that is why we've got too many dogs, because I find it very hard, because I never know whether we've got too many dogs, and we need to be supported with those dogs if we can possibly get it, because there is so much need out there. But so every dog that we take into our actual kennels, it has had nobody else that was going to help it. So that is often for different reasons, in that they might need retraining. And that's ever so true after the pandemic, because they just didn't get certification, or they've got expensive veterinary things. So everyone that we've rehomed have actually been its back has been right against the wall. It hasn't been selected by anybody. So every time we home one, I consider that is a miracle. People say, how much does it cost to save a dog? I have no idea, because I have no idea how long they're going to be with me. And of course, the Excel situation has made it even harder with what's happened recently. Having said that, yes, 7,000 to 8,000 of those dogs that have had all that, needed all that work and care, have gone into forever homes.
How do you feel like this 20-year journey has enriched you personally?
I don't think I could honestly say it's enriched me. The only thing I personally is that I'm doing something. I'm actually standing up and doing something, and that gives you a certain sense of achievement.
Yeah.
But because the route to doing that thing is so painful, and the damage to you is so massive, in that it's just torment really doing it. And you wouldn't want anybody that you loved to have phone calls where they've got to make their mind up on the spur of the moment, whether a dog lives or dies, is a horrendous thing to do. So I think it's destroyed me in most ways, in mentally, physically, emotionally broken. But at the basis of it all, I do have this feeling that I'm glad we're brave. I'm glad we did something and we didn't just turn our heads. It would have been so easy to say, to turn your head and say, I can't give my life to the vet because it's too painful. I can't go through that every day. But we haven't. We've stood up and we've said, no, it's not right what you're doing. We want to make it better.
Yeah. What's a message that you'd like to give to your supporters?
Be just who you are. You've been there. There've been days when somebody's rung me about a very difficult situation, and I've gone to them and I've put a post up and I've said, what do we do? And within a few hours, I feel so motivated that they've given me the funds. Because there are days when you actually think you can't. You think, I can't take this pain anymore. I can't have this responsibility anymore. I can't. The financial responsibility is like, don't sleep at night because of it. And the emotional responsibility of making sure if you miss the dog and you don't get it right, and honestly, I haven't done it very many times. We had one where I begged the pound for the dog and we sat outside in the van and they killed it whilst we sat outside. And you remember that dog, and they live in your head. They're always there, and you say sorry to their picture. You say, I'm so sorry, I couldn't do it. I don't know why I couldn't do it. But and then this band of animal angels says what you're doing it's a vindication. It is right. It is right to stand up for the literal underdog. It is, they're the literal underdogs. And it is right. So it gives me loads of strength and courage to actually carry on with things. So, but we're going to do 20 years this year. I don't know if we'll be here next year. I honestly don't. But we're going to do a lot of things this year. We're going to try and do, there's going to be a picture that they can buy and things like that. Please support it, and let's make it that next year we're still here to carry on together. But respect to them, absolutely amazing angel. I always think to myself, money's the snake bite and money's the antidote. To put right the wrongs of the world, which is often caused by money, their exploitation of the dogs for money, and to put that right, you need money, unfortunately. We use it in the best possible way. I often think, I wish the secret millionaire would come to our kennels and just come in quietly and see what we do, because it would be very nice to just be able to concentrate on the dogs and not always be worrying about whether I can pay for them. And that is the dual thing all the time. Everything is like that all the time.
I would just like to say well done to Doris Banham on their 20th anniversary. I got to know Doris Banham Dog Rescue in 2021. They were the last chance to live for a dog that I became aware of in my community, who was due to be put to sleep on the Tuesday. I contacted Doris Banham Dog Rescue on behalf of the family of the dog on the Saturday, and they gave this dog the chance to live. And since then, I've felt really privileged in being able to volunteer to support the cause of Doris Banham Dog Rescue. So I would just like to say what an absolutely brilliant job they do.
My name is Mini Vasudevan and I am the founder of Humane Animal Society in Coimbatore. This is the story of Leon and how he is today at Doris Banham. Leon was abandoned on the streets of Coimbatore, emaciated with skin problem, and he was rescued by us. Unfortunately, due to his nervous aggressive nature, we weren't able to rehome him locally in India. An overseas volunteer managed to find a home for him in the UK, and we took so much effort to take him over there, only to be rejected. On the verge of being PTS, Doris Banham was the only charity that came forward to accept him. And today, Leon is a happy boy only because of Trudie and Doris Banham. Thank you, Doris Banham and Trudie, for giving Leon hope and giving him a second chance.
Hello, my name is Mark Thackeray, and I'm a proud supporter of Doris Banham Dog Rescue. Over 10 years ago, we adopted a brindle staffy called Bryn from Doris Banham themselves. He brought us so much love and joy and made our family complete. Sadly, he passed away earlier this year, and we've now fostered another dog from Doris Banham. Since COVID, there's been a pandemic explosion of the amount of dogs in kennels. Doris Banham are the only charity that do not put able-bodied dogs, happy dogs, and even with medical conditions, they do not put them to sleep. They rehome them all. What's really important is that you've got to understand the severity of how these dog charities are really struggling. We can help. We can help by either giving them a monthly donation, fostering a dog, or obviously adopting a dog full time. You've got to make sure that you've got the time and the patience to look after these dogs. But I can assure you, whatever love you give them, they will give you so much more back. The charity themselves have won 3 awards, and I think they're going to win an awful lot more awards, because 100% of the money given goes directly to the dogs themselves. No one takes salaries from this. Please, if you can help, we would very much appreciate it. Thank you for your time.